Happy Monday morning, everybody. As I'm trying to get, where am I? The TikTok going. How is everyone today? I hope you guys are doing great. We are going to get this squared away here soon. All right. Good morning, everyone. Oh, we're having all sorts of fun technical difficulties this morning. It's just fabulous. I love it. Yay. Yay. All right. Hope you guys are having an amazing Monday. An amazing Monday. All right. We got hello, TikTok land. We're just waiting for Instagram to come up. And it may not. It's taking its sweet time this morning. I think everybody's tired. It's Monday. And happy fall. Oh my gosh. Can you believe it's October the 7th already? This is insane. All right. So we're just going to get into it and hopefully the system will bring Instagram up here. Yeah. All right. So today we're going to talk about being direct and straightforward because it's one of those things that I have learned. I've been doing this a long time. And I have also learned that there's a great deal of benefit to being direct and straightforward. It eliminates a lot of confusion, to be totally honest with you. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But what I found in my career, and I used to do it too, I used to really struggle with this, is that there were fears that came with being direct and straightforward. There were fears of talking to people. The biggest fear of all was that I was going to make it worse. And in the beginning, I wasn't like that. In the beginning, I was just like, I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, and didn't think of like the consequences or didn't think of anything that was going on outside of what I was saying. However, coworkers, leaders, I help people learn how to navigate through the people side of work. and it translates into life, believe it or not. But one of the biggest fears, pardon me, the biggest fear, honestly, is like making it worse in today's world. And it's a real concern. So the big thing is that if you don't want to have that happen, you've got to try a lot of things that may or may not work. You have to get out and you have to sample and you have to fail. Failure is one of the greatest teachers on the planet. And I have now embraced failure more so than anything else. And I am extremely excited to be able to talk to people about my failure now. And because I've turned my failure into success, I've bumped my nose. I have tripped over my own 2 feet. I have worked really, really hard to figure out how to deal with extremely difficult people situations. And now what I do is I take all of that knowledge and I transfer over to people who are having something very similar. Excuse me. So a lot of people, leaders, managers, coworkers, they worry that sometimes being too direct could actually create or intensify conflict. And yeah, it can sometimes. But here's the thing. If you've got a good trusting relationship, then that's going to be a positive form of conflict. It's not going to be like an on fire negative form of conflict. If you don't have a good trusting relationship with folks, then yeah, it's going to get enraged and it's going to set on fire. All right. And what ultimately happens is that negative conflict, or even the fear of negative conflict, leads to that tension and discomfort that everybody sees. And we know it when we see it. Like, this isn't something that is a big secret. It really isn't. So there's a lot of benefits about being straightforward that I think that and this is normal for people, that when they're dealing with fear, it tends to suppress all the good stuff, right? What happens is that when we're afraid of something, and I know that this has happened to me, when I get concerned about something, what happens is that my vision starts to go like this. Like, I can only really just start seeing everything that's in front of me. And I don't necessarily remember to open up my aperture and see a bigger picture. And when you start disciplining yourself to do that and recognize that right now I'm only looking at a very small, narrow margin of things, time to open this up again. You're going to start to see things a little bit better and clearer and probably more than for what it actually is. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, especially folks of you who are on TikTok, if you've had this experience, do me a favor, hit the like button on this. Okay. Tell me that you have experienced the same thing, please. Because other people, here's the thing, when other people see that other people that you have gone through something, it reminds them that, like, hey, listen, this is either normal or like it's not a bad thing to go through, or they stop beating themselves up. There's actually benefit to sharing your experience. Okay, so do me a favor, hit those likes if you have been that individual that all of a sudden, like, stuff starts going sideways and you've got a work relationship or a personal relationship that just suddenly gets extremely strained because of some sort of conflict that's going on. And it's a freaky thing to go through. It really is. Okay. So a lot of people, like I said earlier, they worry that being direct could create or intensify conflict. There's also another worry that a direct approach could actually make that person feel confrontational or appear confrontational, that they may further alienate employees or escalate a situation. And that's not a good thing to go through either. Okay. Is if you are going to be direct, understand that you are going to possibly instigate some sort of conflict, but have confidence that you can actually navigate through that. And that's the other half of that piece that people suddenly start to eliminate. Okay. Like, we forget that we're fully capable of actually navigating through this. And if you're not really great at it, today I'm going to give you some stuff that you can work on that's actually going to help that out. Okay. It's actually going to build up your confidence. And if you do this, I promise you, it actually kind of works. All right. So, first and foremost, when you're direct and you're straightforward, the big thing you have to remember is that it actually provides clarity. It really does. When you're being straightforward and you have genuine intention and you've thought through what it is that you're going to say so that the other person, number one, it's not an accusatory type of statement, or it's not something to where, I mean, you can't help if there's pushback, but you're not making a false statement or a false claim. In other words, you're not making something of an assumption. You've actually done the research and you've gone back and you've done the homework, you've broken down, you have been working on solving the problem, or you have done what we call root cause analysis, or you've gone in and figured out what's the heartbeat of this. You've asked a lot of questions to get to the point where you've got something solid. Be clear. Okay. Because when you make a clarifying statement or you're clear on what it is that you're saying, even though they don't necessarily like it, it is going to build trust and it will help resolve issues very quickly when they come up. And you can hear my director of security in the background. All right. Being direct is always about communicating openly and honestly. And there's nothing wrong with being direct. Okay. There's something wrong about being direct with the intention of humiliating, hurting somebody, putting them down. That is unacceptable. Okay. And there are a lot of people that experience that. I've experienced it and I hate it. But being direct is really supposed to be about communicating openly and honestly. Right. When you are a leader or you're a coworker or a team member, like, when you're speaking directly, they actually know what's exactly is expected of them. Like, if you set an expectation, you do it clearly, what happens is that it reduces confusion and it reduces misunderstanding. Okay. When you speak directly, it also shows confidence. And in return, people who have a very mature mindset will foster that respect. Okay. And they understand that this is okay, this is the direction I need to go in. And then there's probably going to be some accountability associated and tied with that. Okay. Direct communication will also ensure that problems are addressed very, very promptly and helps prevent them from going into bigger issues, which ultimately leads to a more effective and cohesive team, to be honest with you. Right. Now, I refer to my notes because this stuff is so good. I want you guys to get it. Okay. So here's some things. I got some examples for you guys today that will help you with looking at direct communication and how you work with what I call the north, south, east, and west. All right. North are the people that you report to and you work under. So this is like navigating one level up. And then south are the people that report to you. And then east and west are the people that work shoulder to shoulder. So they don't necessarily, you don't report to them, they don't report to you, but they could be people in other departments, they could be coworkers. Excuse me. It's fall and I have my fall cold apparently. All right. So let's say you have somebody who's not great at solving problems and this individual reports to you. When you're addressing it, and remember, you always want to do your homework and you want to do enough homework. You want to ask the right questions. So when you ask good questions, you get good answers. So if you're making a statement like John is saying that you're doing this, that is going to be an accusatory statement. Although it's very straightforward and it's very direct, you know what it's going to do? Man, those people, their shields are going to come up faster than the Starship Enterprise, right? And just naturally, whether they realize it or not, they're going to come right up. And now you have to work harder because you didn't set up the conversation well in order for it to come to break down. Okay. So if you're addressing a situation, let's say, for example, you have somebody that's struggling at solving problems. Okay. That whether they're wired that way, they're not wired that way, or just something has happened to where suddenly it's become a new issue. Right. So if this person reports to you, one of the things that you can say is that it seems that you do not recognize repetitive trends in recurring problems. Right. If that's the issue, then you can make that direct statement. And you notice how I said it is that I'm not saying John is saying it just seems that this is the issue. And what it does is that, yeah, they may get a little, their ego might get thumped a little bit. But what it does ultimately at the end of the day is it actually opens up some dialogue. Okay. It allows you to have an open conversation with somebody about something that they're not living up to. Right. Now, if you're, so I explained the north, south, east, west. So let's say, for example, it happens to be somebody that, you work under. Now you can change the conversation and change it into a question. It's like, what can I do to help recognize the repetitive trends in some of these reoccurring issues that we're having? Straightforward conversation. You're not blaming that person because that's you. I would highly recommend that you don't take the same approach as you do with somebody talking down or side to side, right? But now you have two options. You can ask it in a question and it's very straightforward, it's very direct, it's extremely respectful, or you can now say it somebody working down. All right, here's another one. If you have somebody that, you ever work with somebody, they just keep making the same old mistake time and time and time again. Like if you are the supervisor, again, you can make that comment. It seems that you struggle with learning from past mistakes. Great. It's an open conversation, right? Now, what happens if it's going upwards? What can I do to help us identify our opportunities for mistakes that we seem to make over and over again? Nice conversation to have, right? And if you ever had that one individual that and you may have experienced it yourself. I know I have. I don't think any of the stuff that I talk about, none of us have never experienced a day in our lives. Like if you are a veteran of Earth, I'm gonna tell you right now, you've experienced this at some point in time. Have you ever gotten to a point where you're just like so overloaded with the facts that you're really not even sure like where to start, what direction to go in, and you just need to take a knee or take a pause and figure it out? Well, there's some people that can't get past that. So if you have somebody that is experiencing analysis paralysis and it is a consistent thing, and this individual will start with the reports to you, and then I'll go north and then east and west, is that you can make a statement. It's like it seems that you are overloaded with information when resolving complex tasks, and it tends to affect your ability to make decisions. It seems like you're experiencing analysis paralysis more often than not. Again, it gives somebody the opportunity to open it up. You're not making an accusatory statement. You're making an observed statement, an objective statement. See, that's the difference is that when somebody makes an accusatory statement like Johnny says that you're doing this, that's subjective because you don't have firsthand knowledge, right? Even if somebody's come up and said, well, this, Janie's over here doing this, it's like, okay, so the best way to approach Janie is like, help me understand what's going on with this. Then you're not making an accusatory statement. You're making an inquiry, right? So what happens if you have to have this conversation with somebody that's up, above you, somebody that you report to? You can make the statements like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the situation that there's a lot of details where we're at risk of being overloaded with information, trying to resolve some of these complex tasks. And I'm curious to know, what is our priorities in this? How do we get started with resolving this? So that way we can have the ability to make the right decision. You're taking the same information and you're just spinning it. Okay. And you're not spinning it like in a negative way. You're spinning it in a way that it's going to produce some form of result. It's going to engage in conversation. It's going to engage in dialogue. It's going to make things hopefully work much better. Okay. So if you're a leader and you have somebody that you need to have direct conversations about, let's just use these examples, right? Let's just stay on the path that we're on here about decision making or being able to recognize mistakes. Let's go back and take a look. So the problem is not recognizing repetitive trends and recurring problems. So you can ask the question is, what is the root cause of this? So here's your coaching moving forward. This is a question after you have your initial conversation and you see it when it continues. If you go back and say, we've talked about this, right? The only thing that's going to do is that's going to squash that person. But now you can start retraining them. See, that's the key right there. You got to start learning how to retrain your people in a way that you probably haven't done before. I had a boss. He was absolutely awesome. He's one of my favorite bosses to all this day. We worked in a car dealership, and Tom was really great at listening to everybody. And every time somebody said, hey, Tom, I have an idea about how we can make something better, he would always ask this one question. And eventually what happened is that it trained people to approach him in a certain way. And it was really super effective. And they would say, well, he would ask the question, is it going to help us sell more cars? And if they said no, then he would very politely say, I hear what you're saying, but unless it helps us sell more vehicles, it's not worth pursuing. So he's looking at a much bigger picture, right? 9 times out of 10, when somebody came to him with an idea how to make something better, it was to overprocess something that would make their job easier. And I did the same thing, right? But what happened is that when people got shot down enough times, and he was very gracious about it, he wasn't nasty or rude. He always asked the exact same question. Then what happened is that people would start coming to him and say, Tom, I have an idea and it's going to help us sell more cars. He's like, I'm all ears. Let's talk, right? He trained us, and he trained us so subtly in that way. And it was absolutely fantastic because the ideas that did come forward actually were really great ideas. And a lot of them we did implement, right? So that's the same thing. So let's take it from the perspective of somebody repeating something over and over and over again. You're a supervisor, you're a manager, you're a leader, you're a coworker, whatever. So the problem is not recognizing that there's a repetitive trend that occurs in a problem. When that person comes to you or you have to talk to them about something, you can now say, hey, what is the root cause of this? When you recognize that that problem exists, come to them and ask them, it's like, what is the root cause of this? Okay. You can also ask, what have we seen in the past when this comes up? And then let them answer, right? And if they don't have the answer, then they need to return to you with it before you actually engage with them further. It means that it's like, okay, so I want you to give this some thought. I want you to come back to me in the next hour and tell me what it is, or day, or whatever, right? This only works if you have time. Time is on your side. If you're not dealing with a massive blow up crisis, this works for you when you have time. Okay. If you don't have time and it means loss of business, loss of life, loss of people, loss of shares, loss of, just loss, that's critical and immediate, then this is going to have to be a different type of learning. You can use the exact same conversation, but timing has to fall into play here. So your past mistakes. Here's the problem. Person making mistakes over and over and over again, right? Ask the question, when you've been faced with this same thing in the past, how have you handled it? And let them think through it. Let them talk to it. Because when you do that, you're going to learn a couple of things. Number one, you're going to watch them actually process. Number two, you're not spoon feeding them information. And number three, you're actually going to see how they think their way through situations. And if it's just pure carelessness, then that's going to be a hard thing for them to overcome, which there's a lot of that in the workplace, right? And then there are also people that genuinely get stuck. So it gives you the opportunity to actually help people who are genuinely stuck, but it also gives you the opportunity to actually identify without identifying that this person just quite frankly isn't motivated. Okay. And last one, here's the last one for you guys. You have somebody who's like mired in those details and is experiencing that analysis paralysis. Here's what you can ask, right? Out of everything that you've discovered, what is the most critical problem? Because they're struggling to actually figure that out. But there's just something about asking that question. When you say, in your opinion, what is the most critical problem? You're asking them their opinion. You're not asking them for substantial fact. And when they give you that answer, like, well, I think it's this, it's like, okay, then how are we going to address it? Then basically what you're doing is you're starting to get them focused in. And if they're missing, like if you see that there's a greater critical issue and they see that the issue that to them is the most critical is more of a minor in the big grand scheme of things, that gives you insight to how that person thinks. That doesn't, I mean, right or wrong, that's a little subjective, but you're the leader. You're also the one that determines which ones are also going to be priority, right? But when you're working in training and coaching and trying to develop somebody to take on a wider view or take on, overcoming these types of things, which therefore can be problematic, you're actually leading them, you're facilitating them, and you're learning how, you're watching them, how they think, how they respond, how they answer, how they work through, how they navigate. That is a really strong people leader when you have somebody who's able to do that. Now, there are people out there that'll ask a question. It's like, well, what do you think are the top issues? They go, I rightfully don't know. And all of a sudden that person automatically starts shutting that person down, saying, this is not the right person for the job. They may be the right person for the job, but the problem is that they probably never had anybody develop them that way. And if you invest in developing somebody that way, you're probably going to wind up getting a better yield out of that person. Okay. You're probably going to feel more like you can trust that person in their decision. And conversely, they're going to trust you because you took the time to listen to them. You took the time to be compassionate. You took the time to actually work with them through the problem. You took the time to actually teach them how to do something. And I can't believe I said all of that as fast as I did. Right. So that's the benefit of being direct and straightforward, but it's also the benefit of actually being extremely patient. So if you're in a leadership role or if you're in a person that deals with extremely difficult people on a regular basis, you know what? Do me a favor. Go ahead and hit me up in the DM. I may have something that might actually help you out. Would love to hear from you. Tell me what's going on in your world, and I might be able to provide a couple of solutions that will help you navigate through that. And it's always helpful when you have somebody that is a specialist in a certain area that can help you overcome your challenges, especially if there's something that's very important to you. Because look, let's face it, you're absolutely worth it. You're absolutely worth it, right? If you want to be the best version of yourself, overcoming your challenges is one of the most difficult things that you can possibly do. So with that being said, I will be back on here tomorrow. And I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.